Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Conscious Roundtable episode 4. I'm Luna Starfeather. I'm joined today, as always, by my beautiful co-pilot, Sonia Majib. And we are thrilled to be joined today by our very special guest, Juna Mustad. Now, Juna is a life coach, a somatic experiencing practitioner, a trauma therapist. She's a TEDx speaker, and she is an intuitive. And her greatest passion is helping people cultivate their own inner knowing in order to live a soul-inspired life. So welcome, Juna. Thank you so much for joining us today.
So happy to be here with both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to be discussing today how to navigate through physical suffering. And stay tuned because we're going to be revealing the big secret for how to manage this like a ninja. So obviously in our previous videos, we've been discussing the impact that this very stressful situation that we're all in right now is having, particularly on highly sensitive people and empaths, and how this is manifesting as anxiety and stress and fear and panic. Now, of course, the physical body is the last layer to feel the effects of these emotional mental states. And if these are not managed appropriately, they begin to manifest physically in the physical body. And this can take the form of physical pain, illness, severe illness, as in my case, and also adrenal fatigue. So of course, when our physical body stops us and we're brought to our knees and we're forced to stop, what do we do? So, Juna, I wonder if you wouldn't mind please sharing a little bit about your recent experience and how you yourself navigated your way through this.
Well, thank you for articulating all of that so beautifully. And yeah, I think that my experience with burnout symptoms and adrenal fatigue started, I think, last maybe June. I started to experience symptoms of it. And I was living in Bali at the time and I was working a lot. I knew the pandemic was going on. A lot of people were struggling. And as a coach and somatic practitioner and as an intuitive, I really felt like it was my duty and I felt excited to show up for people. But I wasn't paying attention to my own needs. I wasn't paying attention to some cues that my body was giving me that I needed to take better care of myself and really slow down. So I was having shortness of breath symptoms. I was having more and more fatigue. I was feeling depression, which if you know me, that's kind of a weird thing for me. I was feeling less access to my joy. And it didn't matter how much I rested. It didn't matter, how many massages I got over in Bali. I was just wiped out. And what ended up happening, because I wasn't listening for many months consecutively, was that I had a panic attack that started the end of August. And it was basically a 24/7 panic attack. Like I've had panic attacks before that maybe lasted 20 minutes or an hour, but this one, it lasted all day and all night, pretty much for 2 weeks in a really intense way. And then for about 2 months in total. So that's kind of a broad sweep of what I experienced. I could go into the tools that I used during that time, but I guess I'll just pause for a moment here in case there's anything else you want to share or ask about any of that.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I'm just curious, like how one can identify if this is the first time we've ever experienced anything like this. How do we identify when we have entered the realms of adrenal fatigue as opposed to just experiencing exhaustion or depression or, the effects of energetic shifts? How did you come to recognize that you were actually suffering full-blown adrenal fatigue and burnout?
You know, I had never really experienced it before, but if I'm really honest, I think I've been relying on adrenaline as my fuel for years
Mhm.
and supplementing with chocolate. I'm not a coffee drinker, but I am a chocolate addict. And I think that, you know, there comes a point, I'm 40 years old, where that really just does not work. I mean, it really does not work as a long-term strategy, but I think for our bodies and our physiology and all of it, it's just, we can't sustain at that level. And so I think for me, the signs and symptoms were really just that heaviness in the body, and the, like, didn't matter what I did, all my old tools of going on a run in the morning, taking a break. I took 2 weeks off, you know, these things that I did that I even prescribed to clients when they're feeling exhausted and kind of some burnout. None of that worked. And so all of that was a sign to me of something's off here. And then each day, you know, even just walking from my bed to the bathroom, I'd suddenly be out of breath. I was like, what is going on here? You know, I was running 5 days a week, 3.5 miles, 3 to 3.5 miles a day. And all of a sudden, just going on a little walk around the block, I would be out of breath. So that, to me, something is off. My body is shutting down. And I think that would be maybe some of the signs and symptoms. And obviously for anyone listening to this, you'd want to catch it a lot sooner than I did. I thought I was having food allergies. I thought I had no idea what was going on.
Yeah, yeah, it can be really insidious.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, and maybe Sonia, you can weigh in on this too. Like, what are some of the practical, physical tools, practices, resources that people who are suffering from this can utilize in order to help build themselves back up and strengthen their physical body to have some resilience?
So thank you for that, Juna. I've pretty much experienced everything you went through to a T. And intuitively, I knew, the guides. And for any of you that have angelic messengers or guides, the message has been coming through for the last 1 year, 2 years, that there's massive change coming. And a lot of us need to anchor that through our physical bodies, right? We have to look at the density. We have to look at our thoughts. We have to look at what we're eating. And so as a integrative health coach, I've been doing that for 5 years, and I'm like, oh, I'm good. Everything's good, right? And all of a sudden, from left field, again, that the word change very significantly has come in for all of us. It's changing everything. So to answer your question, it's changing how we are thinking, what we're doing every single day, our activities. Because like Juna said, nothing that I did was shifting it. And it's a cosmic shift that we are anchoring through our bodies. What people can do is, again, there's practical tools, there's easy tools like EFT, but a lot of times it's what's happening to us, right? As we calibrate into a higher frequency, is there's a lot of changes being done in the brain. And so when I really got down to it, it has to do with the emotional centers of the brain. It has to do with the limbic system. It has to do with the sensory overload, and like you said, running on adrenaline, and how to finally stop it. The one thing I can say is you have to change your lifestyle. You have to change everything, and I had to do that. It's down. I mean, neuroscience and neuroplasticity talks about this, but it's actually taking a really, really challenging pause out of everything. I have a husband, I have a teenager at home, he's in college, there's a lot of stuff going on, but what do you do when you're finally in the throes of this massive shift? And for me, it felt like a dark night of the soul, my second massive dark night, where, again, a lot of people that are experiencing this, they don't know if they're going to make it, because they will go to regular doctors, or some of us functional or holistic or acupuncturist or whatever. But ultimately, this is a time where you have to turn in and stop running on adrenaline, like you said. So if that answers your question, I think the biggest thing that I can say is you have to change everything about the previous way that you were doing everything in your life.
Yeah, I completely agree, Sonia. And it hurts my heart hearing you went through what I went through, because it was like so bad just to know that other people experience it. And I think just to kind of circle back, to what you shared, I feel like, Luna, what you shared about like burnout and adrenal fatigue, I feel like the bigger picture, if we kind of just step back, like what's really happening is we are not listening to ourselves and we are overriding ourselves. And that will manifest in so many different ways for different people. For some people, it'll be just depression. Other people, it'll be burnout and adrenal fatigue. Other people, it'll be kind of like, what you and I experienced, Sonia, anxiety and like really bad panic attacks that last for months. And so I think that it's going to look different for everyone else, but these big, huge feelings are messengers, and they're trying to speak to us, and they're trying to get our attention. As much as we stuff them down, I think that the most important thing, because they won't let us not listen. Eventually they just start getting so loud and they're saying, hey, it's time to listen. And so I think for me, the first step was completely stopping my life, just like you said, Sonia, like completely putting the brakes on and saying, okay, what are you trying to tell me right now? And I don't think I did that at first. I think at first I did stop my life, but I don't think I really was asking like, okay, anxiety, panic attacks, what are you trying to tell me? I think I was just trying to manage this dark night of the soul kind of hell moment I was in as best I could. And the tools I used were really like the basics of self-regulating. And so taking deep breaths when I could. Again, my shortness of breath symptoms got so bad that at times I was like just gasping for air, which then made it worse. But I just remind myself, Juna, you're getting enough oxygen. Just take some deep, slow breaths, really focusing on the exhale. Things to really engage the, why am I forgetting what it's called again? Sonia, do you know?
Vagus nerve?
Vagus nerve, yes, humming. So like humming, things like that. I was a big fan of getting on my hands and knees and just crawling around my bedroom, like putting my feet on the floor, pressing against the wall, saying to myself, you're gonna get through this. This is hard and you are gonna get through this and you are just fine. Being out in nature. So looking at the stars at night, because I spent a lot of sleepless nights. And so I just be like, okay, I'm just going to do some slow dancing under the stars or looking at bugs during the day, like, touching a leaf, like all these things that kind of bring you in contact with the ground, with nature, with the present moment are all powerful things to really help us come back, especially when that fight-flight response has really hijacked us. So those are just kind of a few of the tools, but oh man, I use so many. Internal family systems, parts work, energy work, singing, all sorts of things.
Oh, bless you. Yeah. And I think what's so fascinating is, I know you've mentioned this and I've mentioned this, and Sonia, you've mentioned this, that, we can be the most resourced, capable, well-informed people who not only practice this stuff in our everyday life, but teach this stuff, like facilitate other people with this stuff. And yet, in the unusual circumstances that we're in, with all these energetic shifts going on and this, intense transformation that we're going through as humans and as a planet, we can find ourselves in a position where no matter what we do, nothing seems to be working. And I know we've all found ourselves at that point where we said, what am I doing? Why isn't this working? I know this stuff. I teach it. Why isn't it working? So here's the question. When we find ourselves in the position where nothing we're doing in the physical is working, where we are fighting to fix, to find a solution, to change what's happening, and nothing's working, what do? Well, here's the big secret that nobody really talks about, but that has certainly worked for me in my 7-year cycle of hell. Surrender. Now, this sounds like a very wacky concept to a lot of people when they are in the throes of torture and torment and drama. We're not programmed to, when we hit up against a problem or drama or pain or a challenge of any kind, we're not programmed as humans with an ego to just surrender as a first aid response. Our first response is always to do exactly what we've all done, exactly what you were describing, Juna, to like call on your tools, to call upon all your resources and your knowledge, and to apply every possible method you can think of to try and fix or change or solve what's happening. But when nothing's working and we've got nowhere else to go, there's always surrender. And actually, what I have found from my own personal experience, which I will talk about in a minute, when we surrender, that's when we can actually tap into our true power. Because when we're doing the other thing, when we're fighting, that's actually control programming. And as humans, we naturally want to feel like we're in control. I can change this. I can make this go away. I can fix this. And actually, what I've come to learn from my own challenges is that control is an illusion. It's not real. It gives us a false sense of safety, but actually we don't have any real control. And I was trying, in my circumstances, so hard to control. I was in a unique situation where for the past 7 years, I've had severe physical illness that have rendered me bedbound for the best part of it. And in 24-hour agony with no respite and no escape. And, you know, I'd be sick for 6 months, and then I'd maybe have 3 months where I'd be recovering, and then another 6 months of illness, and then 3 months of recovering, and then 6 months, for 7 years. And so not only was this physical torture, but it was mental and emotional torture as well, because I'd get some hope that it was done, and then it would be back, and then I'd get hope again. And as a natural optimist, I'd always think positively and think, I've got it this time. I've got it. I've clinched it. I've got the magic pill. I know how to make this go away. And that was always my MO. How do I make this go away forever? How do I fix this? And so I always needed a plan. I always needed to feel like I had some control over it. And this last time, which was over this summer, where I was bedbound for 4 months in the same situation, I managed to access, without even trying, this deep state of surrender, where I realized I have nowhere else to go. Everything I've tried up to now, not working out for me so well. So what do I do? And then this surrender kind of came over me. And I realized that in relinquishing my control, I suddenly was able to access my true power that I had equated with control. But actually, there were two completely different things. And once I relinquished that control and I surrendered to my situation, and I realized that I didn't need to have a plan, I just needed to literally just go into acceptance and love and forgiveness, I managed to tap into my power. And then I started to physically heal. And that is the power that surrender can have. And it's unique to everybody, and it looks different for everybody. So I'd be curious to hear actually from both of you what your own personal surrender has looked like in your respective circumstances, and how that has really saved your life. So maybe Juna, let's start with you.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like this is the game-changing tool, and I wish there was like a perfect prescription for how to surrender. But I think that this is so key, you know, Luna, is just that ability to just for each of us, just to name what it looked like for us, and hopefully people listening can kind of glean the perspectives or the wisdom of how to do it for themselves. But I think I've for so long heard, just surrender, just accept. And it's like, yeah, you can tell me that, but how do I actually open to the practice of that, especially when the brain's threat response is triggered and I'm in fight, flight, freeze because of, like you, Luna, massive pain and discomfort and daily torture. Or, you know, for me with the panic attacks that just never ended, it was the greatest terror I've ever felt in my life. And it's really hard to even try to convince yourself, we're going to practice surrender, when your brain is like in the grip of that flight response. Like, I just want to get away from this and run away as fast as I can. So just like you said, Luna, when you exhaust every other strategy, and sometimes they've worked a little bit, but then you go back to them and they're not quite working, I think you do have to really ask yourself, well, what is the one thing on this table that I've not tried? And the surrender piece was also what I feel like was the game-changing tool for me. And again, if you've ever had a panic attack, your whole system is like shimmering and shaking, and there's just this massive terror, and you can't run away from it. And so what I would actually do finally, and this would not come easily, but I would lay down and I would open my palms, I'd close my eyes, and I would imagine dying into the feeling. And that might, again, sound terrible. And it did sound terrible, but there was nothing else to do. So it's not a mental process, surrender. It really, for me, is a somatic process where you just allow the pain or the terror or the anxiety to be here, and to be as big as it wants to be as terrible as it wants to be. And I would literally imagine this wave of terror consuming me. And at first I couldn't do this alone. I had to have my partner sitting with me, because I really was like, I'm about to die, but there's no other option here. And he would sit with me and hold my hand, and I would just be sobbing, and I would just keep breathing and allowing. And all of a sudden, and I feel teary, something amazing would happen. There was like this exquisite peace that would happen on the other side of this death, which is really just an ego death. And I would just be like, oh my gosh, I'm just allowing my greatest fear, I'm allowing it to be here. And I'm dying into it, and I'm not dead. I haven't died. And that, I think, was the biggest aha for me, was that in opening to this and to surrendering into our greatest terror and pain and fears, we don't die. There's like this beauty and peace and calm on the other side. And then I would notice after an hour or two, like, kind of this clinging of my ego of like, oh, I figured it out. And now I've done it. And now I'm on the other side, and I'm not going to have any more of these anxiety attacks. And then the next day there'd be something that would come up, and I'd go into the whole process over again of starting to cling and try all the old tools and resisting everything except for the surrender, and have to do it all over again. It was amazing. Us humans, we're silly little creatures. It takes us a while. So yeah, I'd be curious to hear, Sonia, your experience, but that's a little window into mine.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. What did I do? I just, again, I did a lot of somatic work, wasn't shifting. I did a lot of anger release work. And one night one day I was like, okay, universe, like, what are you saying? And what I really feel like is, it's this, you lose this connection with your divinity. You lose a connection with your divine perfection, and you are trying to fix things, and you're trying to control things. And, we make up these belief systems and these perceptions, like, maybe I still need to forgive. Maybe I still need to do this. Maybe I still need this healing and that healing. And once I shut everything off, and I was like, because that's the rut that you get stuck in. Your brain gets stuck in this rut where you think that you have to be doing something in order to achieve this peace. And when I really just, again, like changed the way that I did everything in my life, I had to take a pause and really go inward and go, okay, I know I have all the tools. And this one day I'm like sobbing in my closet, and I did this anger release work, and I literally am sitting in the middle of my dark closet, walk in, and I'm seeing all my guides around me, like in a circle, holding me. And so it's those moments where you just, you know, you're not alone, and you just need to anchor. The strength is really just grace. It's this feeling of peace. It's this feeling of bliss. And I knew this was going to be a big year, because I started this year doing Dr. Joe Dispenza's meditations every single day. Not one day I missed for 2 months. And I remember there was this moment, these mystical moments that, you know, when you become nothing, when you are no one, and you surrender to all of this stuff, is when you can experience grace, right? What he says, when you're in the darkness, when you're in the nothingness, when you can receive. And it's these moments where my consciousness dropped from my head into my heart, and it was like an elevator, like a feather. This beautiful feather dropped from my head to my heart, and it's quiet, it's still. And so when you receive a feeling like that, and I was in that mode for like 6 weeks, where I'm like in bliss mode, completely happy. And even after this whole incident with me, as soon as I started changing everything, as soon as I surrendered, I started doing visualization. I used a lot of neuroplasticity tools, neuroscience tools. And it was such a huge shift for me, because it went from like the darkest of dark to like the lightest of light, so happy. And what I realized is our true nature is happiness, is joy, it's being here, not running on adrenaline. It's being in peace. It's seeing nature. It's seeing the beauty in every moment, and not running and rushing through it, right? Not trying to end it, because our brain is stuck in that, like you said, chronic loop, fight or flight, used to running on adrenaline. And we can change the way our brain works. And so this is why I'm so passionate about the work that I'm doing right now, is training your brain how to be present and still and in the moment again. So you're actually present. And in the present, you know what they say, you can receive all of your gifts, all of your, because you're not going, okay, well, what am I? Because honestly, I ran this program previously where I was attached. I was so in survival mode. I was always thinking about what I'm going to eat, right? Classic fight or flight. Like, what am I going to eat tomorrow? Okay, I'm like constant. And it's like, once you get out of that, I can actually just be in the now and go, okay, I'm relaxed, I'm at peace. And it's something that is so experiential. Even if I talk about it, it's not until you experience it yourself where you're just like grounded, and you're permanently grounded, and you know what to do when you get off your center, right? You know, where I could go do a quick clearing meditation, clear your aura, tuck in your aura. There's so many different tools, but for everyone, it's going to be a little bit different, you know, for everyone, because we're all so unique and our stories have been so unique. But it's about not attaching to those stories and bringing them with us, because that's the baggage that I felt this summer. This experience that I experienced was like, you gotta let that shit go. It's weighing you down. It's completely, it's gone. Why is that like this burden, this backpack on you still? Like, you're here to evolve. So that, I think what we experienced was a massive layer of lineage density, eons of density that's like done and off, and now we can go on.
Thank you so much for that. I'd love to pick up on a couple of things that you mentioned there. One is the importance of the now moment, because that's so vital for the process of surrendering. For those, you know, out there who don't know, well, how do I do that? How do I physically surrender? When we're in our head and we are in that fight or flight and we're in that do fix mode, usually we're in some sort of story, we're in some sort of narrative, we're either in a past memory or experience, or we're in the anxious, non-existent future, worrying about what will happen or might happen or could happen. And that's not reality. That's a highly magnified, intensified version of like our worst possible fears realized. So of course, that's our own personal hell. And that's the space we're in. So in order to surrender, the number one thing to do is just come back into the now moment. And so somatic practices, like you both said, just like connecting to your body, even if you're in physical pain, connecting back into your body and grounding is a really great way to remember, okay, what's my reality now? Where am I now? And managing your thoughts and saying to yourself, I'm safe now, no matter what I'm feeling, no matter what I'm thinking, no matter what sensations are going on in my body, I am here, I am safe now. Coming back into that now moment, such an important first step. And then the other thing that you said, Sonia, was about coming out from the head and into the heart, because that was certainly my saving grace, was like coming out of that chatter, of that narrative, that story. What do I do? But what happened last time? But what if this happens? And, you know, and creating my own stress, and just moving my awareness down from my head into my heart space and just breathing and just coming into that space of love and presence with myself. Now, in the past, when I wasn't embodied, I found a form of spiritual bypass actually really, really helpful as a management coping mechanism, as a management tool for managing my physical pain. So I'm trained in Zen meditation and mindfulness. And so I utilized a form of Zen meditation to actually kind of broaden my focus and come out of my body in order to survive the high levels of pain that I was in, because I couldn't take any pain relief. So that was and breathing, kind of like hypnobirthing. I'm so prepared for childbirth. Breathing and meditation was a really great way of managing my physical pain. Now, some people would say that's spiritual bypass, to which I would say, absolutely. Yeah, 100% it's spiritual bypass. And you know what? It has its time and place. For moments like that, where it's literally, I need to manage this pain or I'm going to pass out, it's perfect. It's not sustainable, however. You can't live there. I used to live there. Now, however, thanks to this amazing woman, Juna, helping me learn how to come back into my body, now that I'm living back in my body again, I've learned that I have to manage these things differently in an embodied way. And that's where actually the mindfulness practices have come in. So you can use a different form of meditation. And this time I managed to heal myself and manage my pain from within my body by not escaping my body this time, but actually connecting even deeper with my body, connecting to the pain, not focusing outside of myself in order to avoid the pain or lessen the pain, but actually connecting to the sensations of pain and using that as my point of focus for my meditation and healing. And I surrendered to the pain, not just the situation, the actual pain itself. And I brought love to it. I communicated with my body and I spoke to my body, to the pain, like a mother would to her child if her child was in pain. And I just talked to my body, changing my thoughts that changed my feelings, that then changed my physical sensations with so much love and compassion. And I let my body know that I was here with it and that I wasn't going to abandon it and that I could hear it. And I let my body actually respond, and the pain would talk to me. And I would actually start to hear what the pain was trying to say. And I developed this loving dialogue with my body that actually helped me ultimately heal, because I got to the root of the pain and what it was, the purpose it was serving as a messenger, like you said, Juna. So this is the power that surrender can have. Like for me, it's the true magic pill. But often we have to be brought to our knees and have the rug completely pulled out from under us to even figure out that that's an option or something that we might need to turn to. It's not our natural go-to. I don't know if you agree.
I would definitely agree. It is not our natural go-to. And yes, definitely had an experience of being brought to my knees. And I just love, the different pieces we're all offering here, the being present and learning to be here in the present moment is such a key tool. And then what Luna shared around just that piece of like learning to actually create intimacy with the one thing that we want to change, and deepening with it and inviting compassion and love to it. And I think that these are all practices in the art of surrender. And I think that the third thing that I would just offer is that to me, practicing surrender is also a practice in trust, and trust with a capital T. A lot of us want to feel trust in what we're experiencing, AKA we want to feel a sense of control. This is going to end by then, and I'm going to get through this, and this is how it's going to look like. And I think that's kind of our ego version of trust. But what I think that real surrender involves is a bigger trust, a trust that I'm going to be okay. And I am okay. Even in this terrible experience, some part of me is actually okay. And even if I die through this experience, I'm going to be okay. And I think in addition to that, that I'm held. And I know everybody has a different relationship with God and the universe and all of that, but I think there is something for me about having a deep relationship with Source, God, the universe, and in a sense that we're held, whether you call it your guides or your angels or your ancestors. I think that that piece is so important. And I think that one thing that just really makes me so angry about this whole COVID thing is just how isolated so many of us are, and we really need each other. And in order to really do some of this dark night of the soul shadow work, we need to call upon our tribe, our people, and we need to call upon the beings in the non-physical world, and we need to not be alone. And I really couldn't have done this without the support of my partner and my guides and calling upon the universe. And so I think that's just a third piece I'd really add in here, is just that opening to the larger trust and opening to be held by something larger than us it's such a deep one.
Agreed. Yeah, trust was my word for 2020. And that, that together with surrender and together with love, self-love, has been my gateway to a sense of freedom and liberation. Because after having spent, me personally, 7 years trapped in my physical body and feeling therefore trapped in life, utilizing the power, like you said, Juna, of the higher powers that you feel a connection with, and my own inner power, and surrendering to that and trusting that was my portal to a sense of freedom, and realizing that actually I'm not trapped, I'm not stuck. And that was an illusion as well. So thank you for that. I completely agree. Oh, thank you both so much. I think this was a really valuable conversation. So thank you, Juna, so much for joining us today and for offering that amazing wisdom and for sharing your experience with such a generous heart. And for just sharing so much information and knowledge and the wisdom of your experience. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's such an honor to be here with both of you, and especially, I think, given that we all can relate from our own experience to this topic, and I love the common thread of surrender that we've all practiced in different ways, and yeah, it's just such an honor to be here with both of you.
Thank you. So thank you everybody for watching. Please don't forget to like this video if you like it, and to subscribe. And join us next time for the next exciting episode. Sending you all so much love.
Thank you.
Bye.